Hooman Motevalli, welcome to Partnering Leadership. I am thrilled to have you in this conversation with me.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's my pleasure.
Can't wait to talk about your book, Don't Be a Crab, a practical guide to building strong, joyful relationships. Before we get to that, Hooman, would love to know a little bit about you and your background. Whereabouts did you grow up, and how did your upbringing impact the kind of person you've become?
My childhood was somehow strange because of the situation. I was in Iran. So at the time of revolution, very hectic days, a lot of chaos across the country. That was very challenging. And after something like 2 years, the war started. My childhood was at that time of revolution and war. So when somebody's growing up always in chaos and crisis, life will change.
So you had a lot of chaos in your world growing up, whether with the revolution, with the war, the disappointments. With that chaos in the external world, you have decided that the internal world matters a lot. Your book talks a lot about that mindset and internal dialogue, which you talk about as a roommate. So, what brought you to a focus on the internal dialogue and the impact it has on us?
Yeah, a series of events from childhood. After Revolution and War, my father was in Navy, and all the time he was missing his friends, his close friends in the war. At that time, when I was 7, 8 years old, it was too much actually. But these internal conversations affected my life probably much more than any other child. And after that, he died, and I was devastated because he asked me for some help and I was away, and I just responded that I would back in 2 weeks and we go to a doctor or something like that. But he died the day after, and I was shocked, and the internal conversations continued. So after my father's death, it was not possible to handle it longer anymore. So therapists, etc., but they couldn't help me because even they didn't understand what's going on inside my head. So I started to write down my internal conversations, and after a while, I found that okay, it's really toxic. What's going on in my head? And before that, it was so normal to me. I'm talking to myself, so I have to do that. But I didn't know that it's so poisonous. After writing down, I found out, oh, I'm not a normal guy. After all those events, I'm sick. And with this sickness, there is no other guys around me to help me. I have to put a lot of time on working on my inner voice.
That inner voice that you talk about, Human, you refer to it as a roommate that is with us all the time. How can we know whether that is an appropriate level of positivity or negativity or not? We all have that inner voice. It, in many respects, helps us improve as it helps us reflect on opportunities for improvement, seeking better life, seeking better things, and guides us. So, what is a negative inner voice that needs to be moderated versus an unrealistic, overly positive inner voice that isn't helpful either? How can we determine whether our inner voice, that roommate, is being helpful to us or not?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, what I have done is devising a system to find this negativity or positivity. So before that, I would go to the root by writing down all the conversations. So I gathered 10 plus one fears and shared with readers in the book that without considering these types of fears, you would not find how it works and why all the time is talking to you nonstop. And then I found that without specific exercises, you would not overcome these fears. 11 fears. At that time, I would say that I have, yes, 2 or 3 of them inside me, but after a while, I found that all of them are inside me. And then I found out, okay, all the negativity inside me through internal conversations are coming from those fears. For example, the very first exercise, number 0, is don't act or react. You don't need to act or react in most of cases. And after a while, my inner voice or the roommate was more silent. So what I did was that designing a system working mostly on not to-dos, because all of us have to-dos lists, and all the day, all the week, we are working on those to-dos lists, but none of us have any not to-dos list. So, for example, number 1 of that not to-dos list is stop blaming yourself and others. We are blaming ourselves, others, and also institutions, banks, restaurants, etc. So yeah, 10 plus 1 peers, 10 plus 1 exercises, and 10 plus 1 not to do's. I found that this is the only way to remove that negativity and have a very healthy roommate.
I would love to touch both on the 10 plus 1 fears and then some of the 10 plus 1 not to do's. When the groups look at the 10 plus 1 fears, what are the ones that you see most often and are most pervasive in the executives that take the time to think about their fears? Which are the fears that impact them the most, that need to therefore be addressed in order to guide that roommate effectively?
I found that it could be fear of failure. Mostly it goes back to the idea that we don't care who we are, we care how we are seen and how others see us. Then it would be very important who I am, much more important than how I am seen. It's possible only when what you are doing is clear. As Brené Brown said, clear is kind, unclear is unkind, but she never explained what is clarity. Okay, I'm pretty sure I am unkind because it's obvious I'm unclear. But what is clarity? I'm looking for clarity. So the number 0 as a fear of failure. The other ones I've been working all the time on them is fear of love, because this book is also about relationships. All the time, people are trying to be loved or love someone from the time they are teenagers, and it affects their capabilities, abilities. There are a lot of fears inside about the ones which we are putting a lot of time and energy on them is fear of failure, and then what is connected to relationship.
And I see that in a lot of the executives that I've worked with over the years, and I coach Human, that fear of failure, which you mentioned, it seems ingrained to a certain extent in the human condition. However, now the comparison that you mentioned is no longer with the few people in a tribe. It's not with a bunch of people on a street in a town. It's not even with people in a city at any moment in time, in part because of the amplifications of social media. There is constant comparison of every moment, from the food we eat to the success we achieve in our organizations to the very highlights of people around the globe. So, how do you guide executives to think about and overcome that need for the comparison and that fear of failure?
The very initial point I share with attendees in my program is that you have just two choices. You have to go for clarity or not. The very first point I just draw their attention is that it's about getting out of comfort zone and looking for clarity. So the level 1 from out of 6 levels of my program is being an observer. Without observing all the time, I mean, what's going on inside our heads, it's not possible to be clear. Number 1 is observer, and the second level is going to be an analyzer. So we then analyze many of conversations inside, and it's surprising to most of people that what they are telling themselves. We are the products of what we are telling ourselves. So we are the stories we are telling ourselves. After being observer and analyzer and then distinguisher and then manager and then a true server, you find real reason of your life.
It requires that self-discovery that you talk about, and it increases the self-awareness, which I find plays a role both in leading ourselves and in leading others as well, which is why I would love to get your thoughts in that we do need to think about our own roommate and managing our self-talk. But how does this play a role in leading others and understanding that they each also have self-talk?
Again, very nice question. It's a very special statement with Brené Brown. She says that what you are seeing from others is the best they can at this moment. They cannot do better right now, exactly right now. So it helps a lot to find ourselves not as a center of the world, but just seeing others, what they are doing the best at this specific moment.
We do spend a lot of time centering the world around us, and that ends up causing a lot of issues, whether it is with that self-talk or leadership. Now, would love to briefly touch on your metaphor of the crab bucket. The title of your book is Don't Be a Crab, and how the crab bucket, in your view, applies in the workplace.
All the time, mostly in countries like United States and also in Germany, people are competing for improving their lives. What we are doing on a daily basis is for improving our life's quality. That's why we are comparing ourselves, and then from childhood to the time of being a student, so we bring all of them to our workplace or workspace. So the title is Don't, because I start with not to do's list. Don't do that. So don't be a crab or don't blame. So crab mentality is something that in our recent world is getting more and more. It's worse than decades ago because the level of competition is higher right now. Everything is based on technologies progressing faster and faster, and then people need bigger houses, much more facilities and amenities. That's why I would say that we are much more confused than many years ago, than 100 years ago. Yes, we have overcome many problems and we have created very new problems.
It is why, for us to make progress at a time that I believe we are accelerating because of technology, because of AI, it's going to require both greater self-understanding and for us not to be a crab, a very different view of our communities and supporting each other. Now, Human, in addition to your own book, are there books or resources you typically find yourself recommending as people want to master self-understanding and self-talk?
Yes, definitely. What helped me a lot in this regard is a book written by Michael Singer in Untethered Soul. As a New York Times bestseller. It was a very good book helping me in this regard. It's about self-talk. And also Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. It was about clarity, and there are a lot of good ideas there. And also Think Again with Adam Grant. It helps a lot, these three books. Yeah.
How can the audience find out more about you, follow your work, and find out about your book? Don't be a crab.
So it's hoomanmotevalli.com. It's HOOMANMOTEVALLI.com. All my works and experiences, publications and patents, books, articles are there. Also, my link tree, all what I've done is on my website.
I really appreciate the conversation and you going through the journey yourself, Human, and then sharing some of those insights with others so we can control that inner dialogue, have a better roommate along with us, and have a positive impact both on ourselves and on others as well. Really appreciate you, Hooman Motevalli.
Thanks a lot for your time and attention. I Really hope it will be helpful for your listeners.